The US government is practically begging certain immigrants, including asylum seekers, to get into the workforce so that they can be self-supporting and thus ease the burden on the cities and states where they live. The federal government has started sending notifications to certain migrants asking them to apply for a work permit. Now, the emails and text messages actually seem a bit spammy to many people, but I can confirm it's true. The Department of Homeland Security, DHS, is actively reaching out to encourage people to seek a work permit. In this video, I'm going to tell you why this is happening and who is most likely to benefit from this push to get immigrants working in America. Stay with me to the end because I'm going to tell you how long an asylum seeker currently has to wait after submitting their asylum application before they're eligible to get a work permit. I'm Brian Manning, and I used to be an asylum officer with the government, but now, as an asylum lawyer, well, I help immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. So my office was inundated recently with clients asking whether text messages and emails that they had received from US Citizenship and Immigration Services, which is known by its initials, USCIS, were real or instead were some kind of shady phishing scam. Now, there were different versions of the message, but the text message that asylum seekers got said, USCIS message, you are receiving this message because you applied for asylum and might soon be eligible to apply for a work permit. Read more here. And then there's a link to the USCIS webpage regarding work permits. There was a flurry of discussion among my lawyer colleagues about this. Were these messages really from the government or part of a massive fraud scheme in which someone had breached a database and gathered contact info for tons of immigrants? Well, that question was put to rest when a DHS spokesperson confirmed that USCIS, which is actually a part of DHS, had, quote, launched a first of its kind national campaign for non-citizens who are work eligible but have not yet applied for employment authorization, end quote. So yes, the messages are real. Now, DHS has explained that they're sending such messages to immigrants who they think are or may soon be eligible for a work permit, which is formally called an employment authorization document, by the way. And you may hear it referred to by its initials, EAD. Now remember, not all immigrants are eligible for a work permit. You do have to meet certain requirements. And what USCIS is saying with these messages is, hey, it looks like you're one of the people who might be eligible, so you should look into it further and, if you meet the qualifications, apply for a work permit. So who are they sending these messages to? Well, asylum seekers, for one. And another class of persons getting these messages is persons who came to the United States on a special program for people from Venezuela, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Cuba, who can be eligible to work here based on a permission called parole after someone in the United States sponsors them to come here. Now, if you've received one of these messages, you should definitely look into whether you're eligible to get a work permit. But I have to tell you, there have been some errant messages. There have been messages sent to people who definitely are not eligible for a work permit, or at least not yet, like people who applied for asylum, but whose application has not been pending long enough to qualify them to work legally. And I've also seen reports of people who already have a work permit getting these messages. So it looks like the government's targeting isn't perfect. At least in some cases, they're sending out messages to people who really should not be receiving them. But again, if you get such a message, there's no harm at all in trying to sort out whether you indeed may qualify for a work permit. By the way, if you want to maximize your chances for asylum success, then be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so that you don't miss the insights that I share on this channel. Why is USCIS doing this? Like, what do they stand to gain by having more immigrants get their work permit and then presumably join the workforce? Well, it's because local and state officials are putting massive pressure on the Biden administration over all the migrants that they're having to support. And they think that allowing people to get to work will ease that burden. If people are self-supporting, they won't need as many state and local resources to get by, like free or subsidized housing and food. And to be sure, a recent surge in asylum seekers entering the country has put a strain on local budgets. For example, New York City alone is housing 60,000 migrants in over 200 hotels, tents, and other facilities, including an airport hangar. And according to reports, the city has spent about $1.5 billion in the last fiscal year on migrants and expects that number to increase to $4 billion for the current fiscal year. And local and state officials have been publicly letting the Biden administration know that they need more help. They've really been sounding the alarm, so to speak, and it's making the federal government look bad. The recent push to get people to apply for work permits came after New York's governor met recently with top White House officials on ways to address this crisis. And many are calling on the Biden administration to do much, much more. For example, immigration advocates want to shorten or eliminate completely the time that asylum applicants must wait before they become eligible for a work permit, something that the Biden administration has thus far resisted. Speaking of timelines, let me take this opportunity to address the current state of play regarding an extremely important topic for many of you. When can an asylum seeker apply for their work permit based on their pending asylum case? Now, it's important to note that this has changed over the years and is subject to change again. You need to be sure that whatever information you're relying on is current. And you can start by going to the USCIS webpage for Form I-765, which looks like this. You can find general information there about eligibility to get a work permit. But to be honest, the page isn't always up to date or totally clear with regard to eligibility for asylum seekers, because this is something that changes frequently. Policy changes by USCIS and decisions by federal courts have impacted various aspects of the work permit process for asylum seekers in recent years. And for that reason, it's actually best to consult with an asylum lawyer. All right, so how long does an asylum applicant have to wait before they're eligible to apply for a work permit based on their pending asylum case? 150 days. You must wait 150 days from the date on which USCIS or the immigration court accepted your asylum application before you send in your work permit application to USCIS. Now, USCIS can't actually grant the work permit. Like, they can't formally approve your work permit application until you've reached 180 days, but you can, and you should, apply at 150 days. Then, by the time USCIS gets around to adjudicating your application, you'll be at the required 180 days and they can approve it. I am, by the way, 100% sure that you can apply at 150 days. You may hear people on social media or elsewhere say that it's 180. They're wrong. It's 150, or at least that's the case at the time that I'm making this video. So how long does it take to actually get your work permit from USCIS when you apply as an asylum seeker? Good news, it's pretty quick for most first-time applicants. We've been seeing most people get their work permit within about 2 months of sending in their work permit application. All right, now you know what's going on with these surprising messages from the government, and you know when you can apply for a work permit as an asylum seeker. If you're ready to take the next step and get help with your asylum case, then call my office today. That number is 713-352-1593. And remember, we help people all over the country, so it doesn't matter where you are located. Call us now to schedule an asylum strategy session so that we can help you secure your future in America through asylum. Again, I'm Brian Manning, and it's an honor to serve you in your asylum journey.